given my general taste in books, the fact that I haven't done a vlog like this, reading weird books for weird girls, books for hot girls, sad, creepy, weird books for hot, weird, sad, creepy girls, it's just like, it should be against the law. Because, like, listen, let me run down a few of like my all-time favorite books for you. Here's just like a quick little look at some books that I think might fall into this category. Obviously, like, I haven't read a lot of the like lit fic, and a lot of the books that we're gonna be talking about are a little bit more, less horror, more lit fic. These, generally speaking, are more horror, fantastical, supernatural vibes, but still, I feel like fall under the category of weird books for weird girls. House of Hollow. Some weird sisters who disappeared for a month and they return and like, did they? Like, they're really, really strange now. The Honeys, a group of, this is like another YA horror book, queer, a group of girls at this summer camp that our main character is going to, has this like clique, the Honeys. Is something else going on with them? Who knows? The Need, I read this all in like one night. It's following a mom. That's all I really want to say. Okay, the less you know about this, the better. Do I recommend it? Not necessarily, but like, isn't that the whole point of most of the books on this list? That like, it has a specific audience. Sawkill Girls, another classic weird girl YA queer horror book. Catherine House, okay, look, if you get it, you get it. The girlies that get it, and the ones that don't, and I'm so sorry if you're not one of those. Watch Over Me, I feel like is a little less weird, but kind of weird. It wasn't horror like I thought that it was going to be, but I would definitely classify this as a little weird girl vibes. And then like the quintessential weird girl book, and one of my all-time favorite books, if not my all-time favorite standalone book, Bunny by Mona Awad. I am wanting to get the vibes of these, but also kind of explore a little bit more outside of my comfort zone, because it seems like the more I look at these lists and TikToks and videos about this, a lot of the books that are on this list are under technically the umbrella of like general fiction, lit fic, but like so is Bunny. Every time that I walk into Barnes & Noble and I see Bunny next to all of the other general fiction, I'm like, you are just putting that out there for anyone to pick up not knowing what they're getting into. And I feel like books in this category should have their own section, and that's what we are going to try to find today. So I picked up books that I often see on these lists that interested me most currently. Not that these necessarily are going to be the best ones for me, because I literally have no idea, but they're just the ones that I could get at the library right now, / I already owned, and I've already had a little bit of an interest in. Most of these are considered lit fic, but some of them I did dip into the horror section for, because we gotta ease in, okay? I need a little bit more of that weirdness from time to time. Not to say that these other ones aren't gonna be weird, but only time will tell. So here's what I'm thinking, is that we go through, I'll run you through the books I have here. The Rachel Incident, this is the one I'm least sure about, but I saw it compared to a lot of these books whenever I was going through Amazon to check to see if any of them were available for like cheap on the Kindle. And this one like kept popping up as like a suggested pick. So we'll see about that one. Acts of Desperation, I saw in Barnes & Noble, and I thought it looked really interesting, and I think it was even on an end cap under like weird books for weird girls. Mayfly, I have heard so many people talk about and absolutely love, especially people who have my weird sense of horror loves. Roots, I think I also saw on that same shelf as Acts of Desperation inside of Barnes & Noble. Boy Parts I hear talked about a lot in this category. A Certain Hunger I hear talked a lot about in this category. Sister Made a Monster, I don't hear it talked about as much, but I think it is going to fall in this category, and it's a book that I really want to read. And then Luster, same thing. I see this on a lot of the lists, and I also owned it, and most of these books, in fact all of them except for Luster, came from the library and not my owned TBR. And since I'm getting back in my era of reading books physically, I figured it was maybe time to start trying to tackle my own TBR, but for some reason, as far as I know, I could only find like one book that I felt like fell into this category. That seems unjust and immoral. So here's what I think we should do. Whoa. I think we should read the first chapter of all of these books, get a feel, rate them, do like a Kayla kind of style where she went through and read the first chapter of every single book on her TBR. We're not doing that today. We're just reading every single book on the first chapter of every single book on this TBR. Rate them on a scale of like my intrigue / interest from 1 to 10, and then go from there. See if there's any that like I can already weed out, because this is a lot to read for one vlog, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. For me, right now, at this point in my reading life. And then we'll go from there. Okay, I'm stopping on page 20, both because I think that these aren't really split up in chapters, they're split up in like sections, and each section is really long, but also, to be perfectly honest with you, because I just am like not vibing with this. I think that this is gonna be the kind of weird, sad girl book that isn't for me. Our main character is like struggling with addiction, working as a bartender, but also an artist. And she's like hungover at her job, and a woman comes in and punches her in the face because she photographed her underage son, but like didn't know that he was underage because he used his like brother's passport. When I say weird books, I get this kind of weird, but I don't think that this is what I mean. So an awkward way to start off, I would give this like a 5 out of 10, maybe a 4 out of 10 for my intrigue. Just don't think it's for me. Okay, see this? This is what I was talking about. Probably like a 9 out of 10, not quite a 10 out of 10, but I already kind of figured that I might really like this and that this was gonna be my kind of weird because this is one of my partner's like favorite books, and we tend to like the same kind of weird fiction. But our main character is like, meets this guy in a bar, is like dating him for a little while, and then murders him in a stranger's house. And I'm obsessed. I think that I am really, really, really gonna love this. I'm excited to see if anything else tops it for intrigue, but like, I could have kept going and I wanted to keep going. And that is the kind of feeling I wanna feel right now. Okay, this has like page-long chapters, so I read like the first 4. It was like the first like 10 pages or something like that. But who doesn't love a short chapter? They're not like exactly a page, but they're like a page or 2. They're very, very short. I think that this is going to be kind of like a portrait and exploration of unhealthy love. This is gonna be so shiny here. Let me see if I can, here. This isn't the cover that I'm like used to seeing either. The hardcover has a different one than I think the paperback does now. Maybe one is the UK and one's the US. I don't know. Not what we're here for on this chapter review. I think I would give it like a 7.5 for intrigue. I think that this is a lot like, is going to explore a similar main character who's like struggling with addiction and unhealthy relationships, but in a way that I'm a little bit more interested in than like Boy Parts. I'm definitely more interested in this, but like I could take it or leave it, but I think that it's gonna be a quick read. So the first chapter of this is actually labeled like chapter 0, and I think it's like a prologue to the events that's happening in here. This is one of the ones that I know isn't just literary fiction. It's got a little bit more speculative horror elements. And again, this was a partner, like my partner read this. We both found this in Barnes & Noble when we were like exploring the horror section, and we were like, oh my god, that sounds so good. And then they listened to the audiobook, and I wanted to listen to the audiobook, but I wanted to be able to read along with it. So I think that this might fit really well in this vlog because we've got unhinged, weird women with an unhinged plot, except this also involves like a second pandemic. Like it acknowledges COVID. It's in a world, in a future where COVID has happened before in these people's lifetime, and now there's a second pandemic happening, but I think it's a little bit weirder of a pandemic that turns people maybe like a little bit more monstrous. I don't know. I would give the first chapter like an 8 out of 10 for intrigue, but I think it was mainly because it was like setting things up. I did want to like keep reading for sure. Like I'm still so excited to read this, and I think it's gonna get really weird. Okay, this I'm so excited for. I love when books use the first person plural we to tell stories. A couple of like my other favorite all-time favorite books use that. I don't really know what this is about. It seems like we have a girl in a small town in Florida who has gone missing, and a group of girls that were in their perspective for it. And I'm hoping that the rest of this book carries on in that perspective and that this wasn't just like a weird little prologue, because if it does, I feel like this could be like an all-time favorite. Listen, I'm just putting it out there right now. If it continues in this weird what is happening, vibey, but no one really knows exactly what's going on kind of way, I think that it's gonna explore girlhood and girl friendships, and I'm obsessed. 10 out of 10. This is the one I'm most excited for right now. Hopefully it maintains this kind of vibe and even expands on it. Okay, I did end up reading the first 2 chapters of this because the first chapter is like literally a page, but we're following a woman who I think plays Elsa. It's like unnamed, but she talks about like working at the happiest place on earth, and her and this girl are princesses, but like she is the less, like the way she describes, I think she is Elsa, but she's one of the frozen princesses, okay? But she also murders men? Question mark? And this cover, I mean, come on. This has already been on the top of my list. I think possibly this is also classified as horror, not just like general weird lit fic, but I wanted to throw a couple of those in there because I'm not I'm just kind of dipping my toes into the realm of like not horror, but horror-y weird lit fics. So I figured if I end up hating all of those, or they're not interesting enough for me, or they're not really my vibe, not interesting enough, but like they're not the things that kind of keep me interested in books that I'm reading, hopefully ones like this will. I would give it like a 9 out of 10. I would say this just like barely beats out A Certain Hunger. But again, obviously, Murderous women, similar vibes. Okay, I'm actually gonna take this one out of the running because I think that I misjudged this. It was recommended alongside of a lot of these books on Amazon, but I think it's like more coming of age, funny vibes, like slice of life literary fiction. I don't think it's gonna fall under the like weird books for weird, hot, sad girl vibes. So we're just gonna, not to say that this wouldn't be good, I just don't think it's gonna fit the vlog. And it's not really like what I'm wanting to read right now. Okay, I literally had no idea what this was about. I would give this like a 9 out of 10 for intrigue. I love the writing style. I feel like this is gonna be about just like a woman in her early 20s trying to figure out life and searching desperately for love and trying to combat loneliness and just the awkwardness of like coming into figuring out who you are. She started dating this man who was like twice her age, and they go on a first date to Six Flags, and he claims to be in an open marriage, but like I had no idea that that's what the plot of this was about. And if you are new here, I'm Polly. I currently have 2 partners who are married, who I met like together. And and listen, as someone who dated as a solely poly person for a while in not a smaller town, but like not a huge city, a lot of the population of your dating pool is people in open marriages trying to save their marriage. And I think that that's probably what this is gonna be. And I'm interested to see that perspective. I don't think it's necessarily like claiming that that's gonna be a good thing at all. I'm really excited. I am really intrigued. Also, apparently this was Barack Obama's favorite book of the year. So there's that. Okay, I'm gonna go through real fast and organize these in order of my interest, taking out the Rachel incident because we know that that's out of the running. And then I guess we'll decide what order I'm gonna read these in. I just wanted to kind of rate them. I didn't plan on reading them in order of the ones that I'm most interested in, or in order like of the ones I'm least to most, but this just gives us all a feel, you know? Wrap up my final first thoughts, and then we'll get into that like actual reading the full books section of this vlog. Okay, here's the current standing. I'm gonna try to turn this light down, not that much, but a little bit, so that hopefully the glare, hopefully that helps some, so you can actually see the spines of this. We have Boy Parts, Acts of Desperation, Sister Maiden Monster, A Certain Hunger, Luster, Mayfly, and then Brutes. With Brutes being 10 out of 10, Boy Parts being like a 4 or 5. Honestly, I'm just gonna go ahead and take this out of the running. I know that this is like the one that shows up on so many of these lists, especially on TikTok. I just really don't feel like it's gonna be for me. However, if you've read it and you do, for whatever reason, think that it is, and that that first part just wasn't a good representation of where the book goes, let me know. I'm sure I'll probably do another vlog like this in the future, and we can add that back into the running. For now, here we are. There's 6 total here. I think depending on how quickly, because I know that some of these are gonna read a little bit more quickly than others. I don't know if I'm gonna get through all of them. I'm gonna try to at least get through 4 or 5, but maybe I will. Who knows? Only future Lexa, and now you will know how many of these I get through. Which one am I gonna read first? I have no idea. I'm going back and forth between Brutes, because I feel like I can just like knock this one out, but I also really want to read Sister Maiden Monster. But I don't know if this is the best one to start this vlog out with. This is backward. Cool, 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 cool. I'm doing great. I don't know if this is the best one to start this vlog out with, because it's not like the thing I would put, I don't see this on a lot of the lists. This one, I do see a lot on the list, especially on TikTok. And I feel like they know weird books for weird girls over there. And we love them for that. My hair dried in a weird way, so just ignore my part. I went back on what order I wanted to read these books in because I really wanted to start Brutes. But I was like, oh, but then like, do I need to do it in order? I'm not gonna do it in order of like my most anticipated or the ones I rated highest, but I am just gonna go ahead and start here and get the one that I was like most excited about on the way, because I took this to my partner's house and I literally read like a good chunk of it, like almost half of it. And I'm so excited because the use of we in that collective plural first person usage thing. What am I saying? And that collective first person plural was used for like a good chunk of this book, and I think it is used so far from what I can see like brilliantly, because that feeling in girlhood, like early teenage, tween years, middle to high school, where like your friend group, your friends are like, they feel just as much a part of you as like you do, and you're trying to find like both your sense of self and your individuality while also desperately trying to fit in. And that, like, if you've ever experienced that before, that it's kind of like a little bit toxic, a little bit unhinged, a little bit codependent, but that love and oneness that can be felt, and I feel like it's a unique feeling inside of tween girl groups, is depicted, I think, so well in this writing. But I can already tell why people don't like this. I know that this has lower ratings, and I already know why. I know that the Wild Ones, it also has that kind of collective we voice, and it does what this one does, where most of the chapters have that collective we, but then this one of the characters has like their own POV. In Brutes, we start getting flashes to the future where each individual girl in this group has her own POV, just for like a little bit, to like see what has been going on. And I love that use to separate that feeling of like the collective us, we are one, toward as you graduate high school and you kind of move on and you start building your own life and you start getting like that more sense of self and purpose and like where you think your life is gonna go. Having that separation, I think, is absolutely brilliant. But this is all vibes, no plot. Like, not a plot to be seen. The plot that I thought was gonna happen with this like mystery vibe and this like suspense, what do these girls know, what happened to Sammy, that's not really what the majority of this is. We do have that kind of in the background, but it's less about like a missing person, what is going on case, and more about this friend group and a character study and a vibe study and random line. The quotes in here, I wrote some of them down. This made me wish that I had my own physical copy to be annotating and highlighting throughout, because I didn't bring any tabs with me. I should have thought about that. I just didn't. It's been so long since I've read a physical book that I've wanted to tab, and really just like read physical books, that it completely didn't even cross my mind, so I didn't even have like ways to tab it. But I wrote down some of the quotes, and I feel like they're gonna give you a good vibe for like why I am loving this so much so far. I will say though, before we get into those, I'm not as obsessed with it as I was for that first like 50 pages, just because I think that like, I'll get into it, but I wouldn't rate this like an all-time favorite 5 out of 5 so far, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be, unless maybe, I mean, it might take a weird twist, but I'm still loving it. It's just like not exactly what I thought it was going to be, and I feel like because of that, like that is going to be a bigger disappointment for people than I think it's ended up being for me, because all of the other weird things about the vibes and the plot and this girlhood and this character study was just like so uniquely curated for my taste. But if it's not curated for yours, I think that you're gonna be so disappointed in this. So one of the quotes says, "We would not be born out of sweetness. We were born out of rage, and we felt it in our bones." Oh my god. If that doesn't describe girlhood, teenage anger, I don't know what does. And then there was this one line that I thought was so interesting that says, "And now I think that to humiliate a woman is the only way some men know how to love them." Yeah, okay. I think we've all met a man like that. There's a lot of y'all out here. Okay, and one more. "I used to think people only lied to make their lives mean something. Now I think people lie to make their lives meaningless because it makes them so much easier to live." Oh, so if that isn't your vibe, I don't really know if this is gonna be. It's weird. It is ominous, but not in the way that I was expecting it to be. So far, I think it's really reminding me of the Wild Ones in the sense that we have like this collective girl group, the trauma that they've been through, the way that they've bonded through that trauma, and just like the writing structure itself with the use of like the we. I just moved a lot of my books around so that my favorite shelf is like actually more in view. And because of that, I don't know where a lot of things are. It also does remind me of Bunny. I have a feeling that's gonna be probably a comparison that I'm making a lot, especially because I know that like a lot of these books are compared to, if you liked Bunny, you might like these. But I would not say necessarily, if you liked Bunny, that you'll like Brutes, because this has a lot more weirdness and it definitely feels way more like a fever dream, but it has in common the fever dreamy vibes, the collective we girl group that we get in Bunny, the unlikable characters generally, like, a lot of these characters aren't likable, yet somehow I feel bonded and connected to them. But it doesn't go there, at least not yet, the way that like Bunny does. I'm gonna go ahead and just try to like knock out the rest of this tonight and update you, because I think I can. It's a quick read. The font, let me make sure I'm not giving anything that's gonna give anything away. The font is like really large, and it's just a generally kind of smaller book. Did I understand literally anything that was happening in this book? No. Did I fuck with it anyway? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I'm gonna give this a 4-star. It's not an all-time 5-star favorite. I kind of thought that that was gonna happen, but listen, I think had this been horror and had it gone, it was a little bit weird. Like obviously the whole vibe of it is kind of weird, but I think had this been just a little bit horror-y and gone there a little bit in its weirdness, kind of like Wilder Girls. That was another book I forgot. I don't think I made that comparison, but that was another comparison that I was going to make to this book. Had it had that element, or even like a little bit at the end, had we gotten like a little bit of a twist that had that horror-y vibe to it, I think that this would have been kind of like Bunny in all-time favorite category. But that being said, do I recommend this? Not necessarily. I mean, it's a quick read. If you tend to like the kind of weird books that I like, it might be worth a shot. I think that you'll find out kind of quickly if you're gonna vibe with this or not. If you like that collective, plural, we voice, maybe? But I really liked it. But it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm absolutely starving. I'm gonna go make myself a big bowl of pasta and possibly start the next book, but probably won't update you again tonight. I'm gonna go. I think this lipstick is looking a lot more orange than I expected it to be. It's also not matte, and I was expecting it to be. My like local grocery store had a bunch of Milani products on sale for like $5, and I love their lipsticks, and I don't own a red lipstick. And I was like, oh my god, I saw this packaging, thought it was the matte one, should have double checked, because it's not. It's like a balmy kind of, which is a bold move to have in a red. It's also coming across more warm red, but we're going with it. That also, I don't know if that's really the vibe with a cool tone gray sweatshirt, but I have an update to give you, so we're gonna do it. I started Luster, and let me tell you, I didn't know anything about, do I have anything on my teeth? Because last time I filmed a huge clip with a bunch of lipstick on my teeth. I'm not doing that again. Anyway, I had literally no idea what this book was about. I'd heard amazing things. I knew a lot of people had read it. For some reason, I was expecting this to be a book that was written in like 2015. I don't know why. I just got like the vibes of a book that was written around the time of like, I guess The Fault in Our Stars was written way before 2015, but like that kind of era. And it wasn't, it was written in 2020. And we're following our main girl, Edie? I'm gonna double check that. I need to listen to the audiobook. I think it's Edie. But she is a young black woman. I think she's like 23. She started dating this guy who is like twice her age, and it's complicated, okay? Like her life is just a little bit complicated right now. She works for a publishing house or an editing company for books, something like that. Am I gonna fling this hot pink highlighter around at you the whole time? She meets him online. She is just kind of in like a weird place with her job, and then meets him, and he says that he's in an open marriage, but like, listen, I feel like I'm really excited to read this because I had no idea that it was dealing with like open marriages, polyamory, ethical question mark non-monogamy, because I wouldn't go that far, okay? I would not go that far. It is a tune I know too well. Where a man and a woman in their like mid years of life, 30s and 40s, end up thinking that they can use polyamory to like solve their marriage issues. And I think that's what's going on here, because like he is being really elusive about things, and then shows up to like their second or third date with a contract that is handwritten by his wife with all of these rules about what they can and cannot do. And like one of the rules is that she can change the rules at any point in time, and trust me, she does that, okay? And then it kind of like spins from there. I am like more than halfway through this book. I keep updating you, but like I'm just so not used to how fast lit fic reads. Like I am so used to it taking forever to get through like a fantasy book or a horror book, so I'm not used to being able to sit down for 2 hours and like crank out half of a book. I have been highlighting, and I wish that I would have started highlighting at the beginning, because one thing that I think that this book does so brilliantly and so well is just the awkwardness and weirdness and uncomfortableness of being in your early 20s, trying to figure things out and really struggling through some things, trying to find love, trying to get some stability at your job, and everything just feeling like it could not possibly go any more wrong than it currently is. And then on top of that, what it's like being a Black woman at your job, experiencing racism literally like every single day, but like how covert that racism is. And she talks a lot about how it's hard to explain to people, and she tries to avoid using like the R word, calling things racist, because people always like want it to be a capital R, racist. And then they like jump to these big conclusions and they start telling you why, like, no, they didn't mean it that way. She was like, but the thing with racism is that like as a Black woman, she's encountering this like all of the time. So it gets to the point that it's hard to explain to people like what your experience is, and you just want to be able to be like, this, I'm telling you, this is what happened, and this is what happened, and like this is what it meant, and this was the undertones. And how oftentimes like white people just don't want to see that and don't want to listen to Black people, especially Black women. But I went ahead and read the synopsis of this to see how much of this I could talk about, and like I don't even think I've gotten to some parts that are in the synopsis. Hello? I am more than halfway done. Also, apparently this was a favorite book of the year from Barack Obama. Interesting choice. I see it. It's good. I'm loving it so far. But weird that like the synopsis gives away like literally the entire book, which I guess it's less about the plot, and maybe a lot of these books, especially the ones that are not horror-y and are just like literary fiction, are gonna be kind of like that because there's just like not a huge plot. You're just kind of following, especially in this one, like we're following her just like where she is in this moment and all of the chaos that is kind of happening around her, but it's like everyday chaos, and the way it's written just feels so raw. Like you can feel all of the things that she's feeling. But through a series of events in this relationship, she ends up getting invited to live with them temporarily because also they have a Black daughter who they just adopted like a few years ago. And she's just like obviously struggling to fit in because any help from her parents, probably not so much. So it's literally like, oh, hey, we have a Black daughter, you're Black, why don't you come help our daughter out? Okay. And this man that she's been dating, like, is older, obviously, has a lot of money, and Edie does not. She, like, goes through some things where, like, this is kind of, like, her only option. And just the awkwardness and things that are happening in this very complicated situation. I feel like this is another book that I'm just gonna, like, absolutely fly through. I wonder if there's any quotes in here that I can read to you that I highlighted. There's just a lot of things in here that I feel like I can really relate to from where I was at in like, I would say like 19-year-old Lexa, that like still really hadn't deconstructed comp het, and the idea that like I felt so obligated to be impressing men that like I didn't even care if they liked me. Like I got nothing out of impressing all of these men, but like it was just this something that had been ingrained in me that like and this happens, right? Like the idea that your value is based off of how useful and attractive you are and how like easygoing you are to men. And her working through this and struggling with that, I just feel so deeply in my soul, and I empathize so much from like where I remember being at and how awful that feels. Because she's like at this party and this guy is asking her, who she's never met before and will probably never see again in her life, like, oh, you didn't go to Yale, did you? Like asking where she went to college. And she says, I can't say why I have always felt obligated to impress even men I don't want to fuck, but I'm embarrassed by the prospect of his pity. This man I don't know and will likely never see again. So I don't say I dropped out of art school after sending some incoherent Comic Sans poems to the department chair. I don't say I enrolled in an indistinct community college, threw away most of my paintings, and graduated with what is arguably a more useless degree. And I think I could be in my lit fic era, and I've been saying this, said this a couple videos back when I was doing like my trying to find a 5-star read, that like maybe that's kind of where I needed to be looking at, was like, again, that's the whole point of this vlog, this like weird girl lit ficky vibe, because I just like love books that feel so real and that make, in like character studies that feel so real that you can, even if you can't relate to what they're going through right now, you can usually relate to a lot of the things, like you know what it's like to have been there. Or you like watch your friends or family going through these experiences, right? And it just feels like you are actually reading about like someone who really exists and the shit that she's dealing with. I finished Lester. I had an idea last night that it would be really fun to rate all of these books on a scale of like weirdness, so we'll get to that here in a second because it kind of comes up a little bit with this book. Can understand why people wouldn't like this, but I think that it's just so brilliantly done. Like this does exactly what it set out to do, which is taking a snapshot of like an early 20-something-year-old Black woman who is just trying to navigate life and figure shit out and is surrounded by some interesting people and talks about what it is like to be a woman, what it is like to grow up in the patriarchy, what it's like to be Black, and loneliness. Everyone in this book is lonely, and pretty much everyone is like unlikable in their own ways. Like they are making strange decisions throughout the entire book that they'll like all of a sudden something will be mentioned and you're like, what did you just, like, there was a moment kind of toward the end that like the wife, I was like, huh? But this ended exactly how I thought that it might, how I suspected it might, and exactly how it should have. I could see why you don't like this. I just think it's brilliant, you know? I think it's so well done. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. It wasn't quite a 5-star for me. The pacing was a little off in places. It got a little bit slow, but I think that that was done really intentionally. The writing is brilliant. It is, and this is where we're gonna get into talking about weirdness, and I'll go back and rate Brutes as well. It's not super weird. I would say the weirdness comes from the decisions that the characters are making, the fact that like you'll be talking about something and you're like, why are we following this woman right now doing the things that she's doing? And like, why does she make the decisions she's making and put herself in this situation? And why are the characters who are around her making the decisions that they're making and putting themselves in this situation? Like, it doesn't make any sense, but like humans don't make any sense. It doesn't back down from like what it is like to be fully human, and the grossness about that, and the weirdness about that, and the loneliness, and the heartbreak, and the apathy, and the mundaneness. This is like truly, whoa, huh? Caught it, and I was holding my headphone in my hands because Dory came to lay down and I knew she was gonna knock this off. This is like truly what I would describe as literary fiction, slice of life, diving into characters with a little bit of weirdness because of the characters you're following and the decisions that they're making. So keeping that in mind, I'm thinking that like, oh my god, I haven't taken my medicine yet. I was just explaining some things. I'll do that right after I film this clip. It's so early in the morning for me. When I say early in the morning for me, it's currently 10 a.m. But like I've gotten up and showered and done my makeup and hair, and normally I am up until like 4 or 5 a.m. and asleep until like 11:30. I'm very much a night owl. I get most of my stuff done after 10 p.m. So the fact that I was up that early, it's throwing my schedule off a little bit. But I think the way that I'm going to do this like weirdness rating, the assumption that every book I'm going to read in this vlog is somewhere on the is the assumption that every book that I'm reading in this vlog is probably going to be somewhere on the spectrum of weird. So one would be like lightly, would barely call it weird, but like has some things to it that might, like if you're used to just reading typical like historical fiction or literary fiction that doesn't have any of that like weird writing or characters or elements of feeling like a fever dream or weird horror speculative elements, like you're gonna find a little bit off. But then I'm thinking like 5 weird, and this is just my arbitrary scale of weirdness, okay, would be like Bunny. I would say that this is the weirdest book that I've read in terms of like the weird that worked for me and that was memorable and that I think has a very niche audience and that goes there and feels like a fever dream and leaves you just being like, what the fuck did I just read? 5 is the like, what the fuck just happened? What did I read? Goes there kind of weird. Keeping in mind, that's kind of where I'm thinking on my arbitrary scale. I would give this like a 2, not a 1, but like somewhere between a 1.5 and a 2. For me, it wasn't all of that weird, but I could see how reading this, especially if people thought that they were like going into a typical literary fiction, slice of life kind of book, that they would be like, what the fuck is happening? Especially with the relationships between the characters, with like them having an open marriage and then our main character Edie going to live with the guy that she was dating and his wife and their daughter. Brutes, I would give a 3, mainly for the writing and the vibes that this gives. We already talked about the fact that it didn't go there for me quite the way that I was hoping that it would and quite the way that it would have made it a 5-star, but I do think that like you're instantly gonna notice that something is off about this writing, something is off about these girls, the way that they talk, some of the things that we explore in this book is a little off, but it's still like grounded in reality. Okay, reminder everyone to take your medicine this morning or this afternoon or tonight, wherever you are. If you have meds that you need to take, I'm gonna go take mine and we'll carry on. I am absolutely obsessed with A Certain Hunger. That's the next book that I decided to start to read. I actually really thought that I was gonna start Mayfly. Maybe I mentioned that too. Then I didn't have it on my Kindle yet, and I was in bed in the middle of the night. I couldn't read in bed because my partners were sleeping. Like, I couldn't read a book in bed. So I needed to read something on my Kindle, and I have A Certain Hunger from the library. So I was like, okay, I'll just like start reading a couple chapter, a couple pages even of that, just to get me to like start winding down and go to sleep. And I am like the first 30% of the way through it, and I love everything about this book. If you often think that like some of my favorite books are overwritten or pretentious or have like too many unlikable characters in purpley prose, this is very much that same thing. So if you remember from the like reading a chapter, the premise of this, we start off in the like prologue, chapter 1, with her talking about this guy that she meets up and she stabs him and kills him. And I knew from just like hearing about this book that this was also like a cannibal book. And I know that it's marketed as like Eat, Pray, Love meets something, I don't know. And that is like very much the vibe that I would give this, because it's written in a way that it's like our main character, what's her name? Don't know. I'm sure she has one this time actually, but I don't know what it is. I'll figure that out. It's like we're reading her memoir of like a real person who committed all of these crimes that went, like, obviously had a lot of media coverage and a lot of people know about it. So like the reason that you would be reading this memoir is because you want to know more about her brain and what she did and why these things happened. And she's writing from prison, knowing that she has a life sentence, being very candid about things, but it's so interesting. Oh damn, I just remembered that the whole point of me doing my makeup this morning is because I wanted to try this new lipstick. I have been on the hunt for a lipstick that is like Maybelline Gone Greige discontinued, and or a Royal Scandal from Gucci also discontinued. It's a running joke with, like, I tell this to my partners and my friends, that every product that I come, and I'm very discerning now about the makeup products that I buy, and it's like every time I fall in love with a product, I'm like, okay, this is it, this is the one that I want to get. It's discontinued or sold out or the company just closed. Cool. It's literally happened, no joke, like 15 to 20 times in the last like 3 months. So anyway, I finally found like a weird brown, a grayish brown lipstick. It's a liquid lipstick, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I'm thinking I'd just pop a gloss over it from Sephora when I went there swatching a bunch of pretty things a couple of days ago. And that was like the whole point of why I put on my makeup today, but I don't think that that's gonna go technically, but I think the other product that I have is gonna go better, which is Mink by Revlon, also discontinued. Did I buy a perhaps expired one off of Amazon? No comment. I have no reason to think that it's expired, but I also have no proof that it's not. So that's where we're leaving that one. It's brown, but it's a little bit more warm tone, which I feel like goes with this eye look a little bit better. Anyway, we didn't come here for a makeup tutorial. We came here to talk about A Certain Hunger, but it's like so interesting because she'll like address the audience, and I love the usage of you. We're talking a lot about like pronouns and the usage of how things are written in these books, in this vlog, but I feel like that's part of like the weird girl vibe, is the like weird way that it's written half of the time, and this does that so beautifully. So she'll like address the audience as if we are people in this world that like already know about her, which is such an interesting way to write this, because she'll reference things that like we're supposed to know, but obviously we don't, because these crimes didn't actually happen, she's not a real person. But because of that, it just like bumps the intrigue up even more. Would you like to come closer? I'm gonna also figure out what I'm doing with my hair. But another part about this that I love that I think could be annoying, just like that could kind of be annoying for some people depending on like your taste, because she's supposed to be this like very unhinged woman, she will, it's like she'll be talking about, like she goes on for like 20 pages about how she used to be a writer for like a food, not a blog, like a magazine or an online magazine, and how she was like going on this trip searching out this like perfect truffle, and it's like 20 pages of this, and then all of a sudden she's like, yeah, and then unfortunately I had to kill the guy and eat his liver. But then like back to the story about the truffles, and you're like, excuse me, what? As if like the truffles are why we came here. But like to her, that's like the only thing that interests her is like food. and, I don't know, killing and eating men. So she just like drops that little bit in there and then like carries on, and you're like, wait, what? Can we circle back to that? And then it will circle back. But I love that, how it's like, for her, it's just what like everything is like whatever, you know, like she doesn't have a conscience, she doesn't feel the like empathy in the way that a lot of us do. So it is just like talking about her hunt for the perfect truffle. And one of my favorite things in books is when characters don't think something is unsettling that us as the readers do. And this is just doing that so brilliantly, and I am hoping that it keeps up, because this could be, and I know I said this about Brutes, okay, and then it went downhill, but I really think possibly that this could be like an all-time favorite. And I'm trying to keep my expectations fair as to not jinx it or ruin its chances of doing that. But I think possibly. I'm really, really loving it. I'm helping my partner pick out an outfit for an interview today. Like last week, I don't think I updated you guys on this. I fell down the concrete stairs off of my porch. Here's the thing, is that I often fall. I was due for a good fall. I tend to like have a good fall once or twice a year, and I haven't had one for a few years. And it was like, the funniest thing is that my Ring camera caught the footage, and I don't think I can show you because I think it would be so obvious where I lived. But if I can like crop it in a way that you can't, there's like something very distinct right outside of my house that I think if I can crop that, then like maybe I can show you, because it's fucking hilarious. Like I knew the Ring camera caught it. It was like 10 seconds. I was digging through my purse, and then it was like the stair came out of nowhere. Like I had no idea it was there. And then before I could do anything, I was just like on the floor. And I felt like, out of all ways that I could have fallen, it was miraculous that all that happened was I scraped my knees a little bit. I didn't even scrape the palms of my hands when I landed to catch myself, because I think what took the brunt of the force was my crossbody purse. And the thing is that inside of that crossbody purse, I had 2 pairs of sunglasses, my Kindle, and my phone. And like that took the brunt of the fall. I felt literally like, here's a step, here's a step, here's a step, concrete. I fell at the top of the steps just like, and then slid down the steps. It took a beating. Okay, I have a bruise like this huge that I didn't even notice at first on the side of the bottom of my stomach from where my crossbody bag was. And my Kindle didn't break, my phone didn't break, the sunglasses didn't break, all of the various lipsticks and products that I have in my bag, nothing exploded. It was wild. And most importantly, I didn't fuck up my back again. That was the thing that I was most worried about, was like instantly. You can see in the footage that I roll like on it, like the first thing I do as soon as I stop sliding down the stairs is I roll over, and I'm like, okay, listen, I might be falling, but I am not going to lose my dignity. I might lose my balance, but I'm not taking my dignity with me, okay? But I know that instinctively I would have gotten up as fast as possible, but I was so worried about re-injuring my back that I was like, okay, Alexa, you've got to take a second to breathe and like calm your adrenaline down and assess what's going on with your body to see if your back is okay, because I was terrified that I wasn't gonna be able to stand up. But like, I can say that with a lightheartedness now and like laughing at this footage now, because like it's fine. I don't know how it's fine. I think it was because I fell so quickly that I didn't have time to self-correct and like go off to the side, which actually ended up working out brilliantly, because I think had I fallen to either side, that would have fucked up my spine and my hips. But because I hit almost equally like pressure on both sides, it was like nothing. But my legs were really, really, really scraped up. But anyway, why was I telling you this? I don't know. They're better now. It sucked because it was literally right before Memorial Day weekend when all of like the pools opened and stuff, so I couldn't go to the pool. But I'm hoping, like, they're almost fully healed. So I'm hoping by this weekend I will be able to, if not, hopefully like the beginning of next week, I can like hit the pool sometime, because I love being by and in the pool. This eyeshadow looks so different on camera than it does in person. In person, it's like so green, and I feel like you pick up a little bit of that on camera, but it looks more gold, maybe. In person, it's like the multi-chrome reflection is lime green. Okay, so I'm like 75% of the way done with A Certain Hunger, and I am worried that I've taken too long to read it. It's been a few days since I've updated you. I have done so much around the house. I completely moved the room that I film in from the very back room of the house to the very front room of the house. And that involved me like switching around everything in both rooms, including all of my books. But because of that, I have started reading this a little bit slower. Not that I wasn't enjoying it, just that I was doing other things, and I started another one of the books that we'll talk about here in a second. So I think though that like, I'm kind of worried that maybe that's impacting my love of this. Not that I'm not loving it, but like I only have 25%. I could probably sit down and kick this out in like an hour and a half, and it's not like I'm compelled to read it. I've been picking up other things instead, and I'm pretty sure the last update I gave you, I was thinking that this could have been an all-time favorite, and maybe it still will be. Maybe it's just that because I haven't read it here in the last couple of days, I've just forgotten a little bit about it and how much I'm loving it, because there's not necessarily anything that's like changed that's made me like it any less. I just wonder that if this was a book that I sat down and read very quickly, like in the course of a day, like I did with Bunny, maybe I would have liked it a little bit more. And then that's made me start thinking, because I've been trying to figure out like why it's been so long since I've had a book that I would consider to be like on my all-time favorites list, because I felt like I was having so many back to back to back, and that when it came time for me to figure out like what book I wanted to read next and what book was going to go on my favorites list of the year, it was like so hard to narrow down because I had so many that I was like passionate about. I've had books that have been favorites this year, but I can't help but think if I read them last year, they probably wouldn't make it on my favorites list from last year. It's just that comparatively, since I've read so few that I've really, really loved, you know? So I've been trying to figure out like why that is. And I think like this is making me start to think that it could be because I'm just not sitting down and like reading books in a day the way, like how often that I used to. It was not a super common occurrence for me, but it was uncommon for a book to take me more than a week to read. And I feel like that's more common than not now, that I'm reading a little bit slower, and maybe that's impacting it. I thought for a little bit, and I still think this could be a possibility, that it was listening to audiobooks that was making me, I felt this like since I started reading. I still love audiobooks, but the amount of books that I've read that are all-time favorites that I listen to on audio are slim. And I think that's just because sometimes I'll realize that like I haven't been processing, not that I haven't been processing everything that they're saying, but like a little bit. Sometimes, especially since I love books that have pretty writing, it's harder for me to be able to like really sit down and appreciate that when I'm listening to an audiobook and I don't have that same experience of like highlighting and tabbing. And that brings me to the third thing that I think is affecting my reading, and that, not affecting my reading, but affecting like why I don't have so many incredible favorites. And obviously like we all go through seasons with our reading, right? Like, and that's fine, but it's been like a year. So that feels like more than a season. And I think that last part, what was I saying? What was the third thing? Oh, that I haven't been reading physical books as much. I've been reading mainly on my Kindle, and on the Kindle you can highlight things, but there's no way to like highlight by color, which is what I would do with tabbing. Was basically like I had different colored tabs for different reasons why I was highlighting certain parts, and I just feel like that made me connect a little bit more with everything that I was reading, and I can't do that on the Kindle. And I also can't like write my thoughts in the Kindle the way that like my copies of the Raven cycle, like the Raven Boys, are completely torn up and highlighted and underlined, and I've written things in them. And I think that was part of the experience of what I loved so much. I think had I just, well, the audiobooks of those sucked, right? But like, had I just listened to the audiobooks, I don't think that I would have connected with them as much. Not to say that like you can't connect with audiobooks as much. I just think with my ADHD and my auditory processing, it just is different. It's a different experience for me. And there's reasons why I read audiobooks, and it's not the same reason that I would sit down and like tab a book, you know? I think that maybe that is also having an impact. Anyway, that is literally nothing to do with a certain hunger other than the fact that I'm still loving it. I'm excited to give you one more update, but the only thing that I think has really changed on my feelings about it is just the update that like I think I've taken a little bit too long, but I'm hoping to finish it today. That is my goal, is that after I film everything that I have to film and I do some of my work, I'm gonna sit down and like knock out. I'm actually past this because I've been reading partly on my Kindle. I think I'm on this chapter. I'm here. Hello? So I only have that much left to go. I don't know if you could hear her or not, but Willow, I think, has learned from Dory and Oliver how and when to meow. She used to sound like the few little squeaks she would make sounded almost exactly like Oliver, but now whenever she hunts, she kind of sounds like a little bit also like Dory. Like Dory, whenever she is hunting for puffballs at night, sounds like a Victorian ghost child saying, hello? Like, I have to warn people that it's not a person. It's Dory. It's not a child screaming from the other room, hello? Because it sounds exactly like that. And Willow sounds more like a meow, but it's like her attempt at replicating the sound that Dory makes. And it's so cute. Oh, I have to change the battery, hold on. Okay, popping in to tell you that I finished A Certain Hunger. The last 10% of this, I liked a little bit more. It definitely dragged, I would say, like in this middle part in terms of like my enjoyment, and I think it was just like a little overwritten in the middle part. Honestly, another example of a book that I feel like had it been just a little bit shorter, it would have worked a lot better for me. I still really liked it. What did I end up? I think I'm giving it, I think if I did quartered stars, this would be like the perfect example of a 3.75 for me. It wasn't quite a 4-star, but like a 3.5 seems a little too low too. Maybe I am gonna give it a 3.5. I originally rated this a 4 when I just like popped it into Storygraph. But now I'm wondering if like that's inflated a little bit. Maybe this is actually more of a 3.5. I will say in terms of weirdness, definitely weirder than the other books that we've read so far, because obviously of that like cannibal part of it. But like when you hear the premise of this story, like a woman who kills and eats her lovers, and like a fake memoir of her, kind of a tell-all of her and like explaining her life story and stuff like that, it is exactly what you think it's going to be. There aren't like a lot of twists and turns in this. She is unhinged, she is deranged, and you're reading from her perspective, so you're getting a little bit of that. So I would say like a 3. What did I rate I wish I would have written down my weirdness ratings for the other two. Maybe a 3.5. We'll give this a 3.5. Knowing that, like, again, if I did quartered stars, I would probably rate it somewhere between a 3 and a 3.5 for weirdness, mainly because of just like reading from someone who is like so unhinged and that like a little bit more gruesome, cannibalistic part of it. But there aren't any, like, this is grounded in reality, lit fic, no like supernatural elements. Okay, so the other book that I started reading while reading A Certain Hunger is Sister Made a Monster. And that was because I have the audiobook on Everend, but I canceled Everend and it's about to, like, my subscription is about to expire. So I want to like get through this with the audiobook before I can't listen to it anymore. And this is interesting. For all that I heard that this was like gruesome and graphic and gross, it is, like, it's definitely, this goes there. This is classified as horror. It is horror. They're cosmic horror elements. We're working with the plot of following in 3 different, like, it's almost like split into 3 different sections with 3 different women during this like second pandemic. So COVID has already happened. We're on to the second one, but this is manifesting in a very different, more monstrous way. So there are different like types, how it shows up, there's different classifications. And I don't want to go too into that because I think the synopsis is a little vague. Like, it just gives you a little sentence or two about each person that we're following, which makes it a little bit tricky because like there's spoilers technically in the synopsis for things I haven't read yet, and I'm more than halfway through the book. I also like can't talk to you because like almost each one so far, I think what's happening is like it has its own plot kind of arc for the major part of their story, and then I think they're all gonna kind of come together in a way. The first one was Erin, who is just like a regular woman at first, but then like the night her boyfriend proposes to her, she ends up catching this virus, getting really sick, having to go to the hospital, having to be quarantined, having to go to this hospital that is like a little sketchy. And we get a glimpse already of some of her symptoms, including her tongue growing teeth. Okay, so like that's kind of the vibe. This is definitely weirder, but like obviously because it's horror rather than lit fic. With that being said, it doesn't have the element of weird writing that like Bunny does in that fever dream. Like, it's all very cut and dry, the actual prose of this. And I think that's maybe like what's not hitting for me, because this is gloriously queer and has a lot of feminist themes in it and a lot of deconstructing of like the way that we view women's worth and sex work and white women and their tendency to take advantage of women of color, and how we view queer women's relationships, and especially bisexual women who are in straight passing relationships, and how their queerness can often get like erased. And I love all of those themes. I love the way it's getting weird, but I was talking with my partner about this today because this is one of their favorite books. Like, they've been so excited for me to read this. And I think what is tricky for me right now is that because it's split up into these like 3 women, completely different sections as of this far into the book, although I have a feeling this last section is going to get weirder and all of them are going to kind of come together or connect a little bit more in some way. It was hard for me to really, like, there were elements of this relationship that our first girl was in. I really loved that exploration and I wanted more of it, but I felt like we only got to see them for like 4 pages. And their relationship was weird. And the way that this pandemic and how it has changed people and the conversations that we're having, like, it's very similar to what happened with COVID, right? Because this was written after COVID with the knowledge of like how the world would actually respond to a pandemic and how we would other people and how a huge group, how it would be politicized and how huge groups of people would like refuse to believe facts and science. And that is very much an element of this, but it's like gone even further because the symptoms are so severe. But I think because we had to do so much establishing and world building of what this pandemic was about and what it looked like and how it was affecting people's lives, we didn't get as much time, and we haven't gotten as much time so far to be able to explore all of the other weird elements going on and that like toxic relationship that they were in and the way that they were codependent on each other, but like for a good reason in this world that has like othered them so much. I want more of that. And then our second point of view is from a sex worker, and I liked that more, and I loved it because she is such an unlikable character. Like, whoa. In a way that I think is not gonna work for a lot of people, but in a way that I liked. I didn't like her at all, but like it was done well and it was so clearly that you weren't supposed to like her. And we started to get a little bit more of like a view of what's going on here and like, is there something more than we're seeing? Is this just a pandemic with weird symptoms, or is something else going on here? But I'm not loving it as much as I thought I would. But it is gory and gruesome. I just wish the prose matched that weirdness, and I wish that, what I was saying is that I almost wish that this was written still with these 3 points of view, but alternating. Because like we already get like a little bit of overlap in the timelines. There's like one little thing that connects our first 2 girls so far. And I think had we been able to kind of go back and forth between those, we could have started establishing a little bit of like the world building and what's going on, but gotten more time in each one of those to like actually learn about the characters and see how they're interacting with people and see where their stories are going. Because that is the part that is most interesting to me, and I want more of that. And I'm afraid, since I literally only have this much left and it's flown by, we're just not gonna get that. But I could be wrong, but it is going there and giving me that weirdness I was looking for. So in that realm, I'm excited. I'm so glad that I finished getting ready and doing my makeup literally right as I finished listening to the audiobook. Hold on. This is definitely gonna be an unpopular opinion. And I know now why people generally, like, this has lower ratings and people don't like it, but the ending of this made me like it even more. I was sitting at like a 3.5, possibly 4. I would say like the first half of this was a 3. The last half of this was like a 4. But then the ending, the last little bit, the way that it ended, most people I think are gonna hate. But it's almost making me feel like I need to like up the rating a little bit. Like maybe not to a 4.5, but like to a solid 4, because it made me, I was like walking from getting dressed into the living room. The end of the chapter happened and I thought it was the end of the chapter. And then like the end music started playing on the audiobook. You know, it's like, thank you for listening to this production. And I was like, what? What? Excuse me? Excuse me? And I don't think that that's probably going to be a popular opinion. I don't know necessarily who I would recommend this to. I would say if like you tend to like weird books, that you also are okay with a lot of like gore and very unlikable characters and not necessarily a plot that goes anywhere, and you're okay with like not getting answers to a lot of the world building questions that you're presented with, because that's like not really what this is about, then you could like this. But I think that like the people who could enjoy this it's very niche audience. I also found it so interesting, I wrote in my notes that like literally within 2 real-time hours, I was reading a part of A Certain Hunger, and then I ended A Certain Hunger and went back and started reading this to finish this. And they both talked about like sand sharks and their cannibalistic tendencies. And I thought that was so funny that like I got that example, like that literal specific example, different species of living beings that cannibalize each other and like for the reasonings why, and then like that was used as a very specific example in this too, within such a short time frame of me like reading those 2 passages. I come bearing better news than I thought I was going to. I thought that this was going to disappoint in a bigger way than it ended up disappointing, and I think the majority of the reasoning for that is this ending and how just like unhinged it is and how unhinged all of the characters are. I don't think any of the characters in this book are likable, and I do, like, if this had had that fever dreamy prose, it would have been just impeccable, perfect, all-time favorite for sure, but I'm not disappointed. I really liked it. I'm excited. Like, that was fun. Do not take that as a recommendation. Oh, I just realized that I didn't give this a weirdness rating. I would give this like a solid 4. Because the writing isn't super weird and it's very kind of straightforward, I don't think that it's anywhere near Bunny in terms of like, what the fuck did I just read? Oliver. But the plot and the contents in it and how like gruesome and gory and unlikable the characters are is a little bit of like, it is very much, what the fuck did I just read? Definitely the weirdest thus far, but like that makes sense considering it's also like the horror book that we've read so far, you know? I think the trickiest part with this is that it starts off so slow that I imagine a lot of people probably DNF this before it gets really weird. Okay, I'm so thankful that I ended up waiting until I read a little bit more of this and decided if I was actually going to DNF it to update you, because I was going to update you like only 30 pages into this and tell you that I thought that even though I didn't read boy parts, I was also gonna DNF this, which I would like, what made me carry on was I was like, oh, come on. Like that's gonna take out another one of the like just general lit fic weird girl books, and I want to, like the whole point of this vlog is to start exploring more of those. So I didn't want to DNF another one, but it was like so boring at first. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm only like this far into the book and I've already started adding tabs onto my library copy, and I think that I'm going to buy the physical version so that I can like highlight and tab as I go along, because I am loving this so far. A very niche sense of like, if you are someone who has experienced going through an emotionally abusive relationship, kind of like A Dowry of Blood was like this for me. It just feels so like a description of exactly what it was like to be in that and the things that you're thinking. And like, Oliver, sorry, Oliver's been being kind of a dick the last couple of weeks to Dory, so I had to go take care of that. But what I was saying is that kind of like A Dowry of Blood was like this for me, that it felt so much like a realistic portrayal of what it's like to be in that situation. And the thing, like the feelings that you're experiencing and how unhealthy it is and how contradictory your feelings are, and how looking back on it, you recognize the signs, but the way in which you justify them and the mental circles and leaps that you are willing to do in order to justify how this person is treating you, like to yourself. And like the things that are red flags that you don't recognize as red flags until later you're talking to people about them and you're like, oh yeah, like they used to do this, and then you're like, oh, now that I'm saying that back to you, that's not good. But she's talking about like how quickly she learned what was like safe, like what was safe to tell the truth about and what she had to lie about, and like not that the fact that she was lying to him disturbed her, but that she so quickly and elegantly knew how to lie and that those lies weren't even enough. So then like when you, like they're having a conversation about the people that they've slept with and how many people they've slept with, and he's asking her and she says 9. And he's like, see, I've slept with 9 people and I'm so much older than you. I don't know why people are always wanting to sleep around. Like, it's so fucking ridiculous. Da, 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 da. And she's like, I don't know how many people I've slept with before. It's probably something more like 30, maybe more. I had lost substantial chunks of time to drink when I first left home. Couldn't and didn't want to remember exactly what had happened. It wasn't the lie that disturbed me, but how quickly I knew how to do it. And I was like, Because it's like these things that like before, I remember these times that like before the answer was even out of my mouth, like it would come out of my mouth, and then I was like, why did I say that? That wasn't true. But it was like something inside of me knew it wasn't safe to tell the truth. So then it was like instinctually, you come up with like exactly the answer that they want to hear, that it isn't going to hopefully get you in too much trouble, but is also believable. And it's like this line that you have to ride to be able to like, it's this line of like exactly what they're looking for, but not too much what they're looking for, because then they're gonna think that you're lying to them, whether you're lying to them or not. And then there's like this conversation that they're having where he is talking about how he's like writing poems about his ex. And he's like, it's not a big deal, don't make a big deal out of it. And she says, I nodded slowly, taking it in, sized it up as quick as I could. Don't make a big deal of this, I told myself. I was pragmatic, entering panic mode already, trying to recover my composure. What could people be expected to tolerate of me? How much of what I needed could I reasonably demand? Nothing, nothing, nothing. And she goes on talking about how she hated having needs and showing the things that she needed because that felt too real. Like that felt too vulnerable. And I was like, oh my God, girl. Like so much of pre-therapy me really related to this. I had been living in a constant bargain with Sarian for months. Every day that passed in which I was easy to be with, and accommodating and a good girlfriend, was a ritual offered up. My body expected the perseverance to mean something, and suddenly it was clear that my intentions were meaningless, and I could no more magic him into loving me than I could an animal back to life. Listen, so I think what I'm gonna do, oh, lost my page. But I think what I'm gonna do is buy the physical copy of this because I want to continue reading it and annotating it. I wanted to like tab a few of these just to make sure that like I actually thought I was really going to enjoy this before, because it's a newer release, I think. So like I'm not gonna be able to find it super cheap, but I'm gonna try to find a good deal on it, get the physical version, read it, highlight and tab it, keep you updated, but it'll probably like be a few more days. But to you, that's not gonna matter because it's gonna be instantaneous. Kayla just posted her video of like hate comments control what I read for a week, and I just started watching it and I'm absolutely obsessed already. I'm only like 2 minutes in. I wanted to update you earlier in the day. However, trying to get a COVID vaccine booster shot has been a ride of a lifetime. Okay, no one wants to give me a booster shot. I spent literally all day. It is 5:30. I started this adventure at like 10 a.m. and finally found a place that was still administering COVID vaccines and that had some in stock. But I got it, and I have updates for you, including that I finished Acts of Desperation. I don't think I ever said who this was by. I don't even know if I said the title to you. Megan Nolan. I tabbed this up. Can you see that? I was afraid, and fair enough, because I did run out of yellow ones, so I started using the lime green ones too, even though they didn't match perfectly. I still feel like it fits the vibe. And here's the thing. I'm gonna give this 5 stars. Like, did this say anything new? I don't necessarily know about that. Was this written in any way new? Don't necessarily know about that either. But something about this, just, it was like the author crawled into my skin whenever I was the age of this main character, like 22, 23. What is our main character's name? Rebecca? Or is that our main character's name in the next book that I'm going to talk about? No. It might be Rebecca. Might have made that up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was like she just knew exactly like all of the things I was feeling and thinking, but like didn't realize other people had ever felt that way before. You know how like, especially as like a young teenager, when you grow up and you're experiencing these emotions for the first time, and it's the first time that you've ever felt these things, so it feels not only like the end or the beginning of the world, like good emotions that you feel for the first time of like being in love or feeling love or having a crush feels like the most anyone has ever loved anyone ever, and no one can possibly understand how you feel and how this love feels because no one has felt this way before in the history of time. And then your first heartbreak feels like no one understands that level of heartbreak and you will never recover, and like you didn't even know that it was possible to feel that hurt because it's the first time that you're ever experiencing those things. It also feels so lonely in a way because you are convinced that like you are the only one who has ever felt something like that so deeply, because how could anyone else be feeling that way to like that level, you know? Hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. But like this is what that book felt like if you growing up as like a teenager or a young adult 20-year-old were in like a toxic relationship and had that feeling of like being love bombed and the codependency and the feelings of like what our bodies meant, and like especially if you had a lot of trauma around like your mom or mother figure and like her feelings around her body and how that was projected onto you, and your feelings of your body in relation to how men viewed it and how like your worth of your body was dependent on like what it could provide to men. Like all of these things that like I've worked through in therapy, but didn't really have a way to like put some of these things into words, or even to know that they were things that like other people felt. To see it so clearly on the page, it was good. I will say, was this weird? No, not at all. Like I'm tempted to give it a 0 for weirdness. The weirdest thing about this is why they chose to recover it this way. I'm so glad I got this copy. I love this cover, but nothing about what this is selling, including the blurb that says hot as viscera, a love story like no other. This doesn't give the vibes of this book. Like this book isn't sexy. I don't think, at least that's not like the main appeal of it. Like this isn't smutty. It's not hot and sexy and gross and weird, and I don't think we have a single sex scene described in here. We have some traumatic events described. Yeah, I don't know what I was saying here. There are definitely sex scenes on page in this book, but like it's not smutty in my opinion. That's really what I meant. Moving on. It's more just like a very insular feeling of how she was feeling in this relationship and afterward. Our main character makes a lot of decisions that you're not going to agree with. If you don't like an unlikable character, I wouldn't say she's necessarily like super unlikable or hate, like I didn't hate her. I empathized a lot with her because she was just like, it felt like doing the best she could in the situation that she was in and with the tools and resources that she had, and she just didn't have a lot of healthy coping mechanisms and ways of dealing with her feelings. But like she has support system, like she has friends and family that she could lean on, but hearing her describe like why she feels like she can't lean on them is like really interesting, and it makes a lot of sense, and it just felt like I was reading someone's memoir about this like relationship that they were in and all of the things that they were feeling as they were reflecting on it. Because of that, I'm giving this a 5-star. Like this just is another book that feels like me at a specific point in time written onto a page. It's a very specific relationship with very specific feelings. I don't think it's gonna resonate with everyone. I'm gonna settle on a 0. I'm feeling pretty confident like this isn't weird. Not in relation to what we're talking about. But in my defense, Barnes & Noble claimed that it was a weird book for a weird girl. And I could see though, however, even though this isn't weird, if you like a lot of those books, that you could like this. But had it not been like marketed to me that way, I wouldn't have read this and thought, oh, this is for the weird bitches. No, brilliant, brilliant. This is the kind of literary fiction I want to read. Moving along to our next book. Do I know what this is about? In theory, but not really. Mayfly. I believe that this is going to be our last of the video, so we'll read this and then we'll do a wrap up, establish the weirdest to the least weird, my favorites to my least faves. And this is one of the ones that I was most excited about. All I know is that I've heard people describe this as weird. And if you remember, it's been a while at this point since we're toward the end of the video, so to recap, this is the one where we have our main character is like, or Elsa, she's one of the Frozen princesses, and she plays them at Disney, and her best friend is the other princess, and she lives with her grandma in LA, and we get to learn a little bit more about that and about her relationship with her best friend. Also, I believe, does some killing of men on the side, but what's interesting is that I am like 20% of the way through this book, and it's not at all what I thought it was going to be so far. Really? There hasn't been a lot weird to it, and there hasn't been a lot of horror elements. In A Certain Hunger, we know from the very beginning, like, she's done some shit, and it's setting up this like we start to get scenes, like we start off with that brutal scene of her like murdering a dude. We know what we're getting into. With this, we're just kind of following her life, and she's talking about like how she doesn't feel like she relates to people in the same way that like other people do, and her connection with her grandma and with her best friend Kat, I believe. Our main character's name is Maeve. And really it's just kind of been more of like a look into how she is exploring the world, but with some like things thrown in there that, and I love this. I love like how this is written so far, because it'll like be a throwaway line. Like she'll mention something about like cutting out a man's eyeballs, but like, and she'll be like, you know, like some people would, like some people in this situation would just like scoop out this man's eyeballs and da 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 da. But like, we'll get to that here in a little bit. And like, but like that's it. Like it's just like, and then we like go back to her life, and it's like, boop. And then like we'll see an interaction between her and another person that you're like, what? But what's interesting about this is like a certain hunger, I feel like it's written in a way that like we're not supposed to necessarily like really empathize with the main character. Like she is kind of removed. Like we know from the very beginning that like not a lot about her is very relatable. And she knows that, and she knows that you know that, and she's not trying to get you to empathize with her. She's like literally just telling her story. Whereas this is written in a way that like this main character, I guess, in theory is maybe is supposed to end up being unlikable by the end, but I really couldn't tell you because right now I'm kind of liking her. Like, I kind of really like her. Like, she's funny, and it's so interesting, like, watching the difference of, like, her reality versus, like, then she's going to Disneyland and playing this princess, and, like, the things that she's thinking and saying, and, like, the little strange interactions, but, like, she's also, like, really fucking great at her job, and she, like, really, really loves her best friend and cares about her, and really loves her grandma and cares about her, and, like, has this relationship, at least, like, from what we're seeing from her eyes. I imagine this is going to get strange, and I have a feeling it's gonna be one of those things that like all of a sudden it goes from like 0 to 100. But for the first good chunk of this, it's just kind of like a normal book with like a little bit of weirdness that you know something is coming. But I kind of really, like, I'm enjoying her. I'm not saying that she's a good person. I'm not saying that I'm agreeing with all of her decisions or that I agree with any decision that I don't know about yet that she's making. I'm just saying I kind of fuck with her. Oh, I look so tired. That's because I am. Okay, this room, it's a bit of a hot mess right now. I'm just like in between. There's nothing I can do with it at this point until, let me just give you a quick little tour, shall I? From the comfort of where I am currently sitting, which is a chair I'm trying to get rid of. Quite like this desk that I'm desperately trying to get rid of. All of these clothes I plan on donating. And then once, I can't even like show you because this is on a tripod. I've got a thing of shoes I need to be donating. That little thing needs to go. Oops, sorry about that. I've got to find a better place, obviously, to put the cat carrier boxes. One of them is sitting in this bag down here. Another one is fallen, evidently over here. Clearly not the end goal for this room, but it is a work in progress. I worked like what literally was and felt like nonstop all day on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and I know I got a lot done, but it was things that took so much time, and then you didn't really have like a ton to show for the time that you spent doing it. Like a lot of like organizing drawers and things like that, like drawers that I have not touched and like closets full of things I haven't touched in a long time, that it felt like it would take me 8 hours to do a task, and I was like, what do I have to show for this? One room with a bunch of shit in it? Great. With that being said, one thing that I do have to show for this weekend is that we are finally wrapping up this vlog. Let me go ahead and tell you my final thoughts on Mayfly. Yes, I meant to update you. I even stopped reading this. It's been like a week at the 85% mark, and then I meant to update you, and then Willow was just so cute sitting on the couch and she fell asleep. So I just went ahead and right now read the last 15%, and I'm just gonna update you now, because here's the thing. This got weird like I knew it would, but not in the way that I was expecting at all. At all. Was the take that I had that anything that Maeve does, I still kind of fuck with her? A hot take, yes. Do I still stand by that despite everything that happened in this book? Kind of, okay, kind of a little bit, yeah. That she's not really a likable character by the end, but like something about her, I still kind of like, I really liked this book. I don't know who I would recommend this to. This definitely has, from all of the books that we read in this, the narrowest audience that I would feel comfortable recommending this book. And I would say if you are someone who thinks at all that you might need to be looking up trigger warnings, I would do that before getting in, especially since the majority of this book, it goes literally from 0 to 100. Like, and not quite in the way that I was expecting. I was expecting similar vibes to A Certain Hunger. That is not how I would describe that. Yes, we have women with murderous inclinations, one could say, hobbies. This is very different and definitely goes there more than A Certain Hunger does, and the graphic imagery goes there more. With that being said, I'm glad that the ending went there, but I almost think in a way, especially one of the main kind of plot points of this book that I don't want to talk about because I feel like it would give too much away. I just think that it also went there, but I wish that it would have gone there a little bit more, and I felt by the end that last like 10 or 15 pages just went by too quickly, and I wish that we would have spent, like, I wish this was either a little bit longer or we cut a little bit into the nothing happening portion. Not that it ever felt slow to me, but I think we could have taken out 30 or 40 pages of that and added 30 or 40 pages more to when we were finally in Maeve's unhinged era and us finding out everything about her and everything that she's done and everything that she's doing. It's hard to rate this on a scale of weirdness because I feel like it's definitely the most graphic of the books that we've read for this vlog. Because most of this book feels not so horror-y, and it's not like this is very like cosmic horror, kind of like Sister Maiden Monster was, and it doesn't really have that what the fuck is happening following a bunch of weird people in a weird way and it's written weirdly like Brutes does. But the content, I definitely would only recommend for certain people. So with that being said, I think I'm gonna give it like a 4, 4.5. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. I don't really remember what I've rated the other things, but I would say this is probably like the most graphic and unhinged book that we've read in this vlog. And in a way, more weird than Bunny, but in many ways, definitely not as weird as Bunny. If you are okay with graphic imagery, I think that this is more accessible in a lot of ways because of how it is written and how it's like very straightforward and grounded than Bunny is. But I don't think that I don't think Bunny is as graphic as this is. Depending. But let me just go through and like quickly arrange these in the order of like my enjoyment, rating, vibes right now. Honestly, all of these I liked. Like, I would put them definitively in the liked / some of them loved category. I'm gonna be honest with you. Again, do I remember what I rated all of these? No, it's been a little bit. I had one hell of a weekend. I'm a little out of it. So we're just doing our best here. But if you asked me right now to rank all of these and my enjoyment from what I remember, Acts of Desperation has to be on the top because it's the only 5-star of this vlog. Did I tell you what I was gonna rate Mayfly? Don't think so. I would give this like a 4, 4.5. I wish that we had gotten 20 more pages in the ending because I think it could have been a 5-star all-time favorite of the year, but it just ended it going, okay. I didn't end it going, okay, but like I ended it going like, okay, that was weird, but like I'm not obsessed. You know, the way that I thought I might be. Then I would put Brutes just because I love the way that this was written. Like, I am so excited to read more from this author. This is my kind of writing style. I just wish it was horror. This is where I can't remember what I rated them, and I think that you could like move these two back and forth at any given time. A Certain Hunger and Sister Maiden Monster. The ending of this one really like brought it up for me, but it wasn't quite what I was expecting, and neither was A Certain Hunger. I think both of these, even though they're not the same, I do kind of wish that they went there more and we spent more time on the weird parts, less time on the things I didn't care about as much. And then I would put Lester at the bottom, but that's not necessarily to say that like this is a bad book. Obviously, I can't remember what I rated this, but I liked it. This like overall was definitely like my most successful vlog in a very long time. Very, very long time. And I feel like I learned a lot about my reading taste and what I like in weird books, and that I think I could start dabbling in like literary fiction weirdness and actually really enjoy it. Maybe not to the extent sometimes that I really, really like find all-time faves in the weird horror books, but that there is that potential there. So if you also like reading weird books, let me know down in the comments below. If I do a part 2 of this, spoiler alert, I really want to, and I'm probably going to at some point, okay? So like, give me some ideas of the books that you think that I would like, or your favorites that you would categorize as weird books for weird girlies. I hope you enjoyed the background of this dirty cat feeder. This is the quality content that you can come to expect here. The thing is, my next 2 weeks are so booked. Like, I had on my list of things to do was painting and organizing this room and filming me reorganizing my bookshelves, and that did not happen. And it's not going to happen until I can get most of the stuff out of this room, and I've been begging someone to take this desk off of my hands. I don't want to sell it, I just want to give it away for free. And I am cursed with terrible luck of every time that I try to give something away on my local buy now, like, or not buy now, what is it? My local like buy nothing, that was the word that I was looking for. My local buy nothing group. No one can ever fit things in their car despite the fact that I give so many measurements. It's like a joke. It's a running joke. I have a twin mattress that I've tried to give away 3 times, and every single time someone has come with a small car thinking that they're gonna be able to fit the twin mattress in their small car. It's a twin mattress. Bestie, I don't know where you think that you're gonna fit that. So then obviously they can't, so then they just leave it with me, and then I'm stuck with it again. The kitchen table. Someone said they were coming to pick it up, then they were like, oh, I'm on my way, I can't fit it in my car, but I'm just gonna pick up part of it because it came with like an extender, and then tomorrow I'm gonna come with my husband's car. So then they do in fact come with their husband's car, and then it didn't fit in their husband's car, but they did drive away with it, still sticking out the back, which is more than I can say for most of the things that have gotten picked up. This happened with a teacher's desk. Someone couldn't fit it in their car. I gave away a love seat that technically didn't fit in the person's car. She also had to drive away with it. I don't think she wanted to, but I think she was desperately afraid that I was going to give it away to someone else, because I could have, like that love seat, I could have sold to someone easily. I paid like $1,000 for it. It was so cute, but it was so not comfy on my back, and I just needed it out of my life, and I didn't want to have to deal with selling things on Facebook Marketplace. So I was like, if someone could use a couch, please take it. So I think she was afraid that like if she didn't take off with it that day that I was going to give it to someone else. Anyway, that's not what you came here for. We were supposed to be wrapping up this vlog. All of that is to say, after the next like 2 weeks of the things that I film, then hopefully I'll be able to film because I'll have to take all these books down in order to reorganize them, and I've been questioning whether I want to move my bookcases, even though it took us forever to set these bookcases up where they are. Only future Alexa and future you will be able to tell me what I decide on that one. Thank you all so much for watching this chaotic weird books for weird girlies vlog. I really hope that you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you all next time. Bye! Oh, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave an eyeball emoji down in the comments below. Either like those eyes that like side eye, or an emoji that like just has big eyes, something like that. Something to do with eyes, eyeballs, because we've got some of that in these books, and I just feel like that's like a trend in publishing and covers and stuff like that right now. Okay, anyway, bye!